Do you yawn when someone else yawns? There is a growing body of evidence suggesting that contagious yawning, the tendency to yawn when you see or hear someone else yawn, is linked to empathy. Bonobos are a kind of primate, a kind of great ape. Research has shown that the sight of an unknown bonobo yawning in a film triggers a yawning response in the bonobos watching the film, much like some humans. These researchers drew the conclusion that bonobos also have a capacity for empathy. Keep listening to Formosa Fauna to find out more about these fascinating studies and their findings. Spend the next 20 minutes feeding your brain with Formosa Fauna so you can learn all about the animal kingdom and become smarter than all of your friends. Every Friday is Formosa Fauna Friday. Hello, I'm Tristan Hildebrand, the voice of Formosa Fauna. I love animals and I love talking about them. If you're even remotely curious about the animal kingdom, you're in the right place. On today's agenda, we're going to talk about an 11-year-old Eurasian otter in Kinmen or Jinmen. TSMC makes chips. What are they doing saving fish? Humans share 98.8% of our DNA with chimpanzees, and you can very well teach old dogs new tricks. Let's dive right in. Just last week was a 2-day conference all about Kinmen's Eurasian otters on the island of Kinmen or Jinmen. I found out about it just a little bit too late, otherwise I would have loved to try to go myself. In the tranquil waters of Jinmen's Tai Lake, however, a remarkable Eurasian otter has been making waves in the scientific community. This female otter, first documented by researchers in 2014, has recently been confirmed to be at least 11 years old, more than double the previously believed wild lifespan of under 5 years. Taipei Zoo research assistant Zhang Liao Nianhong shared this groundbreaking discovery at the conference, raising questions about the species' once presumed lifespan. Since 2013, Zhang Liao and his team have been meticulously monitoring Kinmen's otter population. Their data reveals that otters aged 2 years or younger consistently outnumber older individuals, suggesting a healthy birth rate. Given their solitary and territorial nature, it's believed that these younger otters were likely born in Kinmen. Currently, Kinmen is home to approximately 60 Eurasian otters, a population density higher than similar species abroad, but still not that high. Previous estimates say the population is less than 200. Some are dying and others are leaving. Zhang Liao notes that otters' distinct traits may limit the applicability of international otter research to Kinmen's context, meaning that it's less likely that they can bring in outside otters to breed with Kinmen's. Despite these positive findings, concerns loom over the otter's habitat. While populations in eastern Kinmen remain stable, those in the western regions, including the Liu Township, are declining or have vanished entirely. One contributing factor is the overgrowth of floating aquatic plants, which can obstruct river channels and degrade water quality, leading to habitat loss. Alarmingly, some key habitats like Xi Lake, Lake Shuangni, and the Huwei River estuary are witnessing otter population declines without identifiable causes, despite appearing relatively intact. This is a segment dedicated to survival tips. Today's survival tip is kind of a crazy one, but bear with me. When it comes to survival, we hear about endangered and critically endangered species. As is the case with the Kinmen's Eurasian otters, we hear the number 60, but do we really know what that means? That's why we're going to talk about minimum viable population today, also known as MVP. The MVP is a lower bound on the population of a species such that it can survive in the wild. MVP does not take external intervention into account and is more like saying if everything goes reasonably well, this is the bare minimum number of individuals required for a species to survive. An MVP of 500 to 1,000 has often been given as an average for terrestrial vertebrates when inbreeding or genetic variability is ignored. When inbreeding effects are included, estimates of MVP for many species are in the thousands. MVP can be useful in conservation planning, helping scientists and policymakers prioritize which species need the most urgent protection and how to allocate limited resources. It also plays a role in extinction risk assessments, providing a data-driven way to evaluate how vulnerable a species is. In reintroduction programs, MVP helps determine how many individuals are needed to establish a self-sustaining population, and it serves as a benchmark for maintaining genetic diversity and avoiding inbreeding. Despite its value, MVP has several limitations. It often oversimplifies complex ecological realities by boiling species survival down to a single number, which we can guess is going to obscure the importance of habitat quality, behavioral traits, and specific threats. Moreover, MVP estimates are highly context dependent, because what works for one species in one environment may not apply elsewhere. You also run the risk of creating a false sense of security. Just because a population meets the MVP threshold doesn't mean it's safe from environmental change, disease, or human interference. Additionally, calculating MVP accurately requires extensive data, which is often lacking for rare or poorly studied species. Another drawback is that MVP focuses solely on species survival without considering the species' ecological role. A population may be considered viable numerically, but still be too small to fulfill its natural function within the ecosystem. Think bees, right? You could have 500 of them left, 1,000 of them left to survive, but to fill the role that they fill in our ecosystem, that is not nearly enough. So, using our imaginations and an interesting fictional scenario for fun, if the apocalypse came, zombies started roaming Earth, and you were to build a safe haven away from the zombies, you'd want at least 500 people there with you, bare minimum, in order for humanity to survive. Thankfully, probably that will not happen, but I hope that it's useful to someone in some way, because I know personally whenever I hear of species becoming endangered or nearing extinction, I use this MVP to gauge just how bad it is. But when you hear 12, 60, or a couple hundred, you like to ask the question, like, is there a way to come back from that? So hopefully this is kind of helpful in that regard, just as a mental gauge. Just a different perspective on survival today for our survival section. Taiwan is an island that is 70% covered by mountains, lakes, and jungle. Taiwan's early connections to the Pacific and Southeast Asia are well established and are the basis for seeing Taiwan as an ocean nation. Did you know that over 17,000 species thrive in the deep sea where no light penetrates the ocean waves, or that there are 38,000 different kinds of microbes in just 1 liter of seawater? These were all discoveries made by the Census of Marine Life, a 10-year international effort that assessed the diversity, distribution, and abundance of marine life. Today, we're going to talk about Banorhescu's gudgeon. Imagine a tiny fish, no bigger than your finger, fighting for survival in the shadow of Taiwan's booming tech industry. That is the Banorhescu's gudgeon, a freshwater species found only in the Wu River watershed in Taichung. Classified as critically endangered in 2017, this little fish has seen its numbers dwindle to around 800 due to pollution, invasive species, and rapid urban development. Measuring up to 6.3 centimeters in length, the Banorhescu's gudgeon boasts a robust, slightly flattened body adorned with a greenish-silver hue on its back and a silvery white underside. Distinctive features include a series of grayish-black blotches around its lateral line and a unique L-shaped mark on each scale. Short barbels near its mouth aid in foraging along the riverbed, where it feeds on aquatic insects, algae, and organic detritus. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. TSMC, the global semiconductor giant, has stepped in, not with microchips, but with a conservation program. In April, they relocated some of these endangered fish to a specially prepared pond at their central Taiwan Science Park facility. Collaborating with ecological experts, TSMC ensured the pond's environment was just right for them, monitoring factors like water quality and flow rate. Daily observations show the gudgeons are adapting well to their new home. TSMC isn't stopping there though. They're also working with various conservation groups and offering scholarships to promote ecological research. Their Taichung site has become a mini sanctuary, attracting not just fish, but fireflies, bees, and even swarms of purple crow butterflies. It's sort of inspiring to me to see how innovation and large industries can contribute to nature as they grow, leaving hope that there's a future in which we nurture the many delicate threads of biodiversity. Back in the last episode of Formosa Fauna, we talked about how Jane Goodall had observed chimpanzees in the forests of Tanzania, making the revolutionary discovery that chimpanzees also use tools and even made tools, making science basically redefine humanity altogether. Her time in the forest started off somewhat frustratingly, as whenever she got close to the chimpanzee population, they would run away, making it hard for her to make any close observations and making her wonder if she would ever be successful in getting close enough to them to make it worthwhile. She even had pressure as her mentor, Louis Leakey, had to try really hard to get funding for her to do such research. She was a young female doing solo research in the forests of Tanzania at a time when technology was much, much less reliable than it is now. So she had just 6 months to make it worthwhile. She had 6 months worth of funding. Of course, when she did make the tool making and tool using observations, National Geographic stepped in with some more funding, and the rest was history. Goodall went on to witness 9 different tools being used by chimps in the Gombe community. What's funny is her mentor Leakey actually chose her to conduct the research because she didn't have an education in this field, meaning she wouldn't be swayed by pre-existing beliefs or biases. When the rest of the scientific world caught wind of her revolutionary discoveries, probably a bit jealous, they criticized her for naming the chimpanzees, which they, I suppose, would have just numbered instead, but seems a little salty to me. Other studies around the world have corroborated her findings though, and chimps have been seen heading into the forest with a 5-piece toolkit, that's what we call it, including a heavy stick for opening beehives and pieces of bark for scooping up honey. Goodall actually wouldn't describe herself as a scientist though, she prefers the word naturalist. There are many types of scientists though, including ethologists. Ethologists take behaviors studied across several species and formulate generalizations that apply to many species. The idea that animal behavior could be a model for human behavior started taking hold in the 1950s and 1960s as ethologists started understanding social interactions arising from instinct as well as learned behaviors. These studies held a mirror up to human behaviors as well. Once gene mapping came into the picture, the belief that humans are just totally different from animals, especially monkeys, became easily rebutted. Humans share 98.8% of our DNA with chimpanzees, 98.4% with gorillas, and 97% with orangutans. Orangutans. That always trips me up because there's no G at the end. There is also some chromosomal evidence, and without getting too specific, the conclusion is that it's almost beyond doubt that we share a common ancestor with chimps, bonobos, and gorillas. Goodall also observed chimpanzees eating meat. One notable source of meat for chimps is the colobus monkey. This is quite different from bonobos, which are considered very peace-loving. They are omnivores but live in environments where fruit is typically plentiful, so conflict amongst them is quite rare. Also, while chimp groups are typically male-dominated, bonobo societies are matriarchal. Researchers at Duke University in North Carolina carried out an experiment in 2017 where they put 2 bonobos in rooms next to one another with a fence in between them and a piece of fruit hanging over one room. If the fruit was hanging over room A, for example, then only the bonobo in room B could release it. But the room B bonobo would not get to enjoy the fruit that they released, so they would have no reward. Despite this, the researchers found that the room B bonobos would consistently release the fruit so the other one could reach it. The room A bonobo. This research drew the conclusion that bonobos are altruistic. Of course, if you remember at the beginning of this episode, I also mentioned how yawning is contagious to other bonobos, suggesting a capacity for empathy as well. Other studies have shown how bonobos comfort one another when in distress. Compassion, empathy, and altruism are the more laudable human characteristics we share with these great apes. Can't teach an old dog new tricks? Think again. Young dogs may pick things up quickly, but they're easily distracted and impulsive. Older dogs may learn a bit more slowly, but they tend to have better focus and attention spans. In fact, training sessions with older dogs can be more productive than those with puppies. But if they are old enough to have old habits already ingrained into them, it might take a little bit more repetition to keep it up. If you have an old dog at home you'd like to teach some new tricks, consider teaching them fun things like how to ring a bell to go outside, find hidden treats, or follow a scent trail, instead of more intense activities. If they are really on the older side, low-impact tasks like nose work, gentle fetch, or puzzle games might really be great for them. Enrichment keeps minds sharp and reduces boredom-related behavioral issues. Speaking of enrichment, here's a good reminder for everybody out there. Remember to switch out your dog or cat toys every 1 to 2 weeks. Just like kids, animals get tired of toys eventually. Swapping them out will keep things new and exciting, and you can eventually reintroduce those toys that they got sick of, making it a fun experience for them all over again. It's great to have a mixture of different kinds of toys, like those that they can chew, plush toys, puzzle toys, and something to fetch. It always makes me sad when I hear somebody say, "I don't buy my dog toys anymore because they don't play with the ones they have." That's why they need new ones. It doesn't even have to break the bank. Just swap the same ones out. A new set every 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3 to 5 sets total. Honestly, a lot of dog owners already have that many things anyway. This segment of the show will teach listeners just like you how to train dogs. Keep tuning in every episode for some more helpful tips. Who knows when they might come in handy. While not specifically about animals, somewhat relevant, Taiwan has launched the Prima P111, the world's first zero-emission ship destined for Palau's tourism sector. It was unveiled in Kaohsiung just last week, and in attendance at the unveiling was Palau's president, Taiwan's foreign minister, and the mayor of Kaohsiung. The ship is designed to enhance diving and ecotourism experiences in Palau. Palau is one of Taiwan's 12 official diplomatic allies, and this venture serves to not only strengthen Taiwan-Palau ties, but also position Kaohsiung as a global leader in zero-emission maritime technology. Making it to the end of an episode means you are a Formosa Fauna friend. Thank you for tuning in, friend. See you next time for Formosa Fauna Fridays here on Radio Taiwan International.